Genetic Cloning by Nandini, Shruthi, and Angel. What is genetic cloning?
According to the National Human Genome Research Institute, cloning or genetic cloning is processes that can be used to produce genetically identical copies of biological entities. Over the years, researchers in the field have experimented and cloned a variety of different biological materials such as genes, cells, tissues, and even entire organisms such as sheep, cat, deer, dog, horse, mule, ox, rabbit, and rat.
What are the main reasons for genetic cloning?
The main reason for genetic cloning is because it allows us to reproduce organisms in large amounts with specific features that are desired. For example, sheep were genetically cloned to be able to produce human insulin. If our world was to purely rely on natural breeding of organisms for their mass production, some traits would eventually die out due to the fact that sexual reproduction never allows all the traits or all the same traits to be passed down to the next generation of an organism.
Genetic cloning of farm animals is also used for drug production. Animals such as cows, sheep, and goats are being genetically engineered to produce drugs or proteins that are useful in medicine. As an example, scientists could take cells from a cow that produces large amounts of milk and grow them in culture. Then they could insert a gene into the DNA of these cells that codes for a drug or vaccine. If they take the nucleus from one of these cells and transfer it to a cow egg, it could develop into a cow that makes drugs in its milk. In this way, each cow can have the same traits and they are passed on to each generation of the cows without any of the traits being wiped out.
Is genetic cloning legal in all countries?
Genetic cloning has been banned in approximately 46 countries. This accounts for a little less than 1/4 of the countries in the world. It has been banned in places such as Australia, the European Union, Canada, Italy, France, India, Russia, and many more countries. On the other hand, genetic cloning is legal in the UK for the purpose of making embryonic stem cells for scientific and clinical research, and is strictly controlled by the government.
The process of genetic cloning. How does it begin?
Genetic cloning, the process of creating a specimen with the same or similar DNA, first began in 1885. This was when the study of reproduction first began. In 1902, by the German scientist Hans Adolf Edward Drisch, was able to create a set of twin salamanders by dividing the embryo into two. The process of genetic cloning is not when the entire organism is cloned. It is when a single strand of DNA is replicated multiple times. The fragment of interest, which is usually genes or proteins, is inserted into a plasmid, which is a circular piece of DNA. This DNA is introduced to bacteria. This is when the bacteria start to split and reproduce, successfully cloning the DNA.
What are the requirements?
The requirements for genetic cloning are fairly simple. The strand of DNA that needs to be replicated or reproduced, a host cell to transfer the first gene into, and the necessary equipment. The specific equipment is polymerase chain reaction, restriction enzymes, gel electrophoresis, DNA ligase, plasmids, transformation or transduction, and identifying transgenic organisms.
What are the impacts of genetic cloning and why is it used?
Genetic cloning has both advantages and disadvantages. Doctors and scientists have stated that cloning human body cells can help with testing medicines, and this can result in the cure of many severe diseases being found. There are also many disadvantages regarding genetic cloning, such as the high chance of new diseases forming, organ rejection problems being created, and disruptions in parenting and family life occurring.
So what are people's thoughts? What do you know about genetic cloning?
I've heard of genetic cloning and I have like a general idea. I think that genetic cloning is when you replicate organisms using DNA. It's used for scientific research. You take one organism to make another organism.
For what reason do you think genetic cloning should be legal?
No, I don't think it should be because it's more so just copying someone's DNA. It's like, that's kind of weird.
I don't think it should be legal because it could be misused in many ways. I think genetic cloning shouldn't be legal because it's unnatural.
I think it should be legal because it provides more resources for those in need.
If an animal species is about to die out, then you can clone them to breed them and then they won't die out.